You're at a party. The room is loud. People are laughing all around you. Someone hands you a drink and asks how you've been. And somehow, in the middle of all that noise, you feel completely alone. That feeling makes no sense. You're surrounded by people. You should feel connected. But your brain doesn't agree, and the reason why is far stranger than you think. Loneliness was never about being physically alone. It's a signal, an ancient one, and it's been running in the background of your mind for over 100,000 years. Picture an early human, alone on the savannah. No group, no fire, no one watching their back. To your ancestors, that wasn't just sad, it was a death sentence. A lone human couldn't fight off a predator, couldn't share food during a drought, couldn't survive a single bad night. So evolution built an alarm system, a feeling so uncomfortable that it would force you back toward the group. That feeling is loneliness. It isn't a flaw in your personality. It's a survival tool, inherited from people who needed the tribe to live. Psychologist John Cacioppo spent decades studying this exact signal. He called loneliness a biological warning, no different from hunger or thirst. Hunger tells you your body needs food. Thirst tells you it needs water. Loneliness tells you something just as basic. It tells you your social bonds are running low. Here's the strange part. Cacioppo found that loneliness isn't really about how many people are around you. It's about whether you feel like you belong to them. You can be in a crowd of 200 strangers and your brain registers exactly what it would on that empty savannah, unprotected, unseen, alone. That's why a party can feel emptier than a quiet night at home. The noise around you doesn't matter. What matters is whether your brain detects real connection, and when it doesn't, the alarm goes off anyway. So what counts as real connection? Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying primate social groups, then turned that research toward humans. He found something remarkable. The human brain seems wired to maintain meaningful relationships with roughly 150 people, not more. That number isn't random. It maps almost exactly to the size of hunter-gatherer bands throughout most of human history. Small, tight communities where everyone knew everyone, where your survival depended on a known circle of faces, not a sea of strangers. Now think about your life today. You might have hundreds of contacts in your phone, thousands of followers online, coworkers, classmates, acquaintances stacked endlessly on top of each other. Your conscious mind sees abundance, but the ancient part of your brain isn't counting numbers. It's asking a different question. Who would notice if I disappeared? Dunbar's research actually breaks this down further, into layers. At the innermost circle sit your closest confidants, usually no more than 5 people. Around them, a slightly wider circle of close friends, around 15. Beyond that, a circle of trusted acquaintances, around 50. And finally, the outer boundary of meaningful connection, the full 150. Past that point, names start blurring into faces you recognize but don't really know. This layered structure isn't a coincidence. It mirrors exactly how hunter-gatherer society organized itself, nested circles of trust radiating outward from a tight inner core. Your brain still builds relationships this way, whether you realize it or not. The problem is that modern life keeps filling the outer rings while leaving the inner ones empty. You can have 150 acquaintances and still have an empty seat at the innermost circle, the one your nervous system actually checks first. For most of human history, that question had an obvious answer. Today, for a lot of people it doesn't. And that gap, between how many people surround you and how many people truly know you, is exactly where loneliness lives. It gets stranger. Loneliness doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It changes your body. Researcher Julianne Holt-Lunstad analyzed data from over 300,000 people and found that chronic loneliness carries a health risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, higher blood pressure, weakened immune response, increased risk of early death. Why would a feeling have that kind of physical power? Because to your ancestors, isolation truly was lethal. Your body still treats it that way. It floods you with stress hormones. It keeps you on edge, scanning for threats, sleeping poorly. All because some ancient part of your nervous system believes you're alone on the savannah with no one watching your back. That stress response made sense in a world of real predators. A lone human on watch through the night couldn't afford to relax. Cortisol stayed elevated, heart rate stayed up, sleep stayed shallow, ready to snap awake at the first sound of danger. Useful if a lion might be circling your camp. Devastating if it happens every night for years because of a feeling with no actual predator behind it. This is the cruel irony of the alarm system. It was built to be short-term. Find the tribe, rejoin the group, and the alarm switches off. But for many people today, there's no group to rejoin. The alarm has nowhere to go, so it just keeps ringing, quietly wearing down a body that was never designed to handle isolation for months or years at a stretch. This is where the modern mirror gets uncomfortable. You live in the most connected era in human history. Messages arrive instantly. Video calls span continents. And yet loneliness has been rising for decades, especially among people who spend the most time on social platforms. Why would more connection produce more isolation? Because your brain doesn't just want contact, it wants depth. A scrolling feed of someone else's highlight reel doesn't register as belonging. It registers as watching from outside the tribe, close enough to see the fire, too far to feel its warmth. There's a reason that scrolling can leave you feeling worse than before you open the app. You're watching dozens, sometimes hundreds, of people appear to be thriving, laughing, traveling, celebrating, all without you. Your ancient brain doesn't know it's looking at carefully chosen photos. It just sees a tribe gathering somewhere you're not. And the oldest part of your mind responds the only way it knows how, with the exact same dread your ancestors felt when they came home to find the camp had moved on without them. That's the trap. Modern life gives you the appearance of a crowd without the substance of a group. Your ancestors lived in bands of maybe 30 to 50 people, where everyone shared food, shared danger, shared long stretches of silence that meant nothing needed to be said. That kind of bond can't be replicated by a notification. Think about what daily life actually looked like for most of human history. There was no concept of a stranger passing by unnoticed. Every face in your world belonged to someone whose story you already knew. Their children were familiar to you. Their grief, their humor, their habits, all visible, all shared. Belonging wasn't something you had to build. It was simply the water you swam in. Compare that to a single ordinary day now. You might pass hundreds of faces on a commute and recognize none of them. You might sit in a meeting with people you've worked beside for years and still know almost nothing about their inner lives. The brain registers all of that traffic, but it can't file any of it under safety. None of it answers the question that matters most. Would these people notice if I were gone? So your nervous system keeps sounding the alarm, even when you're objectively surrounded, even at the party, even in the group chat with 40 people in it, even scrolling through hundreds of photos of friends. The body isn't lying to you. It's just using a survival instinct built for a world that no longer exists in the same shape. But here's the part that should change how you see this feeling. Loneliness isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something ancient inside you is still working exactly as designed. It's not broken. It's just confused by an environment evolution never prepared it for. That confusion has a fix, and it isn't more contact, it's more depth. Studies on loneliness consistently find the same pattern. A handful of close, trusted relationships does more for your well-being than 100 surface-level ones. Quality, not quantity, is what your nervous system has always been listening for. Think about the last time the feeling actually went quiet. It probably wasn't in a crowded room. It was probably one person, a real conversation, someone who actually saw you, the way a small band of early humans saw every member of their group, every single day, without exception. That's the truth hiding underneath the discomfort. Your loneliness isn't asking you to find more people. It's asking you to find your people, the ones who would notice if you disappeared. The ones who make the noise of a crowded room feel less necessary, because the deeper, older need has finally been answered. It's worth asking yourself a simple question, not how many people do you know, but how many people actually know you. The version of you that exists underneath the small talk, the polite smiles, the version that isn't performing for an audience. If that number feels smaller than you'd like, that isn't a personal failure either. It's just a sign of how unnatural modern life has become for a creature built for tight, known, permanent groups. The good news is that this particular ancient system responds quickly to the right input. You don't need 50 new friends. You don't need a packed calendar. A single honest conversation, repeated often enough with the same person, can do more to quiet that ancient alarm than any party, any group chat, any feed full of familiar faces you've never actually spoken to. Evolution didn't design you to be impressed by numbers. It designed you to recognize a handful of people who would stand beside you in the dark. So the next time you're standing in a loud room, surrounded by laughter, and that hollow feeling creeps in anyway, remember what it actually is. Not a personal failure. Not proof that something is broken in you. Just a 100,000-year-old alarm, still scanning the crowd for the one thing it has always needed. Not an audience, a tribe. You're at a party again. The room is loud. People are laughing all around you. And this time, you're not scanning the crowd for connection. You're looking for the one face that already knows you. Because that, your ancestors could have told you, was always the only thing that counted.